Well, hello. So you left off right when she was about to open a door, and so I couldn't wait. I need to find out what is behind the door. I will set my timer for 10 minutes and put it in my pocket and get started. So, the lady for a moment stood suspended. She trembled and deliberated whether he should return or not, but recovering resolution, she entered. A candle was burning on a table. The windows were closed up. There were books and implements for drawing on the table. This convinced her that the inhabitants were alive. However, and going to the door, she said aloud, "Whoever resides in this apartment need not be under any apprehensions from the intrusion of an unfortunate woman whom distress has driven to this castle, and only a melancholy kind of curiosity has induced her to explore a part of it proscribed by everyone." She had scarcely uttered these words when the door opened and a lady, attended by an elderly woman, appeared. I seriously did not think we were going to find anything behind this door, so now I'm glad that I insisted on reading immediately. Both started, but the visitor, in a confused manner, apologized for her intrusion. The other, taking her hand, placed her in a chair. "Perhaps, madam," said she, "this may prove the happiest day of my life, and I may rejoice that your curiosity and courage is superior to those terrors by which others have been intimidated." "At least, madam, you will do me the justice to believe," answered the lady, "that I would not have been guilty of this intrusion had I known these apartments were really inhabited. But reassured, madam, your secret is perfectly safe with me." "I do not doubt it," replied the other. "Your countenance is a letter of recommendation to every heart." She then ordered her attendant to bring some refreshments, which consisted of biscuits and fruits. The woman being withdrawn, the lady of the house said, "However, madam, I may rejoice in seeing a female of your appearance, I cannot help lamenting that one so young should know sorrow, or be driven to seek an asylum in such a melancholy place as this castle." "I am indeed, madam, an object of pity," replied the other. "I really want them to have names. Ah, without friends, a home, or one acquaintance to soothe my sorrows. I have fled from oppression and infamy, unknowing where to direct my steps, or what will become of me." "Surely," said the former lady, "Heaven directed your steps here, that we might communicate comfort to each other. Griefs, when divided, become less poignant. I have known years of sorrow, yet I still support life in a feeble hope of one day being restored to happiness." "Alas," replied the other, "not one shadow of hope can I derive from either past or future prospects. And as I have intruded thus upon you, madam, it is but fit you should know who I am and what I am. I was born, as I have been told, at Freiburg, and lost both my parents in my infancy. My birth was noble, but my fortune very trifling. The first thing I can remember was a gentleman who I was taught to call uncle, an elderly woman his housekeeper, and a young girl attendant on me. We lived in the country, about 3 miles from any town or village. As I grew up, masters were hired to attend me, and by their skill and my own attention, having nothing to divert my mind from my studies, I became tolerably accomplished at 12 years of age, when my masters were discharged. We received no company. A few gentlemen called now and then, but those I never saw. My uncle was exceedingly fond of me. His name was Mr. Weimar. Mine, Matilda Weimar. All right. Our ancestors, he said, had been counts, and persons of high rank and fortunes, but by war and prodigality they had been reduced to comparative poverty. Therefore it was fortunate for me he had never been married. Yes, I think I am naturally affectionate and grateful, yet I never felt any degree of either for my uncle, and, young as I was, have frequently taken myself to task when I found a repugnance to return his caresses. I devoted my whole time to my studies. My uncle, when I was about 15, having some property in France, was compelled, by the failure of a house, to go there in person, At first he talked of taking me with him, but changed his mind and gave me in charge to his housekeeper and an old servant called Albert, with strict orders I should never go beyond the walks belonging to his castle. Nothing could exceed the tenderness of his behavior at parting, and for the first time in my life I was affected. I returned his embraces and shed me tears. "Ah, Matilda," said he, "are you indeed sorry I should leave you?" "I am indeed," I replied. "Then you shall go with me," cried he, eagerly. But striking his forehead, he exclaimed, "No, that will not do. My dear Matilda, my sweet niece, keep yourself retired, apply to your studies. I shall soon return, and, I hope, make you the happiest of women." I felt at that moment real gratitude and affection. I promised strictly to obey his commands, and by my endeavors to improve my mind, deserve his love and esteem. He quitted me with extreme reluctance, and for several days I found the want of his company and conversation. But by degrees I grew reconciled, and as Agatha and Albert were respectable and intelligent persons for their station in life, I made them both my friends and companions. This was really the happiest period of my life. I was capable of amusing myself with music and drawing. In the evenings I walked in the gardens and adjoining wood with Agatha, returned with a good appetite, and slept quietly. My uncle remained in France near 9 months. He constantly wrote to me, and I was punctual in my answers. At the end of that period he returned. I was overjoyed to see him, but the pleasure I felt and expressed felt very short of the rapture and transport with which he embraced and praised me. He dwelt on the improvement in my person with such delight that I felt confused and uneasy. The attention which used to give me pleasure now was painful, and I repulsed his caresses involuntarily. He told me he had brought me a present of some books and drawings, both of which he knew would be acceptable to me. I acknowledged his kindness with an apparent gratitude, yet I was in reality but little thankful, though I could not account for the increasing coldness of my behavior. After a hasty supper I retired to bed, notwithstanding his wishes to detain me, and after I was alone I began to reflect on my conduct so cold and thankless towards so kind an uncle, whose affection for me seemed greatly increased. I was displeased with my own reflections, and resolved to behave better to him the following day. The next morning I rose early. My uncle was not up. Agatha met me going into the garden. "My dear miss," said she, "you were very shy and unkind to your uncle last night. The good man loves you dearly, and 'tis not your business to be shewing him such slights, I can tell you." Though conscious I was wrong, I was amazed at the freedom of her observations, as she was not much in the room with us. I therefore made some trifling answer and pursued my walk. It was plain my uncle had taken notice of my coldness and complained to her. I was mortified and vexed. After taking 2 or 3 turns, I went into the house, and met my uncle in the breakfast-room. I assumed the kindest manner possible in my salutations to him, and I saw he was highly gratified by it. He produced his books and drawings. The latter were very beautiful, but the attitudes and want of decent drapery confused and hurt me. For although I had never received any particular lessons on delicacy or modesty, yet there is that innate virtuous principle within us that shrinks involuntarily from anything tending to violate that sense of decency we are all, I believe, born with. I therefore could not examine them with the accuracy I wished, much less praise them as I saw he expected. "Are they not exquisite pieces?" demanded he. "They are very fine drawings, I believe, sir, but I think the subjects of them are exceptionable." "My dear girl," he replied, laughing, "you know nothing of the world. Whoever excepts against the subjects of drawings, or the attitudes of statues? 'Tis the execution and proportions that attract our notice, and I assure you, my little prude, there is nothing objectionable in any point of view in those drawings before you, nor in the books, which are now most in repute among the fashionable circles in France. Ah, but the continent is known for dangerous tastes." Though my reason was not convinced, I made no further scruples, but thanked him for his attention to my amusement, and, breakfast over, retired to my own apartment, having my presents carried there, that I might examine them at my leisure. From this time my uncle's behavior was to me unaccountable. He was forever seeking opportunities to caress me. His language was expressive of the utmost fondness. He praised my person in such glowing colors as sometimes filled me with confusion. Oh man, okay. So that's our 10 minutes. You get to pick up with the story of the creepy uncle, and hopefully we'll find out who this other lady is who has been hiding in this castle. The phrase that you should search is, "In short, madam, not to tire you." And I guess that's part 3 of the Castle of Wolfenbach. Have a good night.